Well, hello, Miss Sandy.
Hello, Miss Colleen.
I am so happy that you're here today on our podcast, our new podcast about creating health. And just a little bit of background about the podcast. I started this podcast because holistic practitioners tend to get pigeonholed into a medicinal philosophy where we treat disease, but we don't. We don't treat disease. I don't think we ever really have treated disease. We're more about health creation. So I like to use this image of maybe a wilting plant, and you pour the fertilizer and water on the plant, and then it gets strong and it starts to create that new leaves, and then the old ones that aren't as functional fall off, and they're replaced by the healthy ones. So that's the premise of this podcast, is to show people different ways that they can create their own health internally. So I am so excited about your conversation with you this morning, because smoking definitely has something to do with health. As a former smoker, I smoked for 20 years. It took me 10 years to quit. And yeah, there was a process there, but I probably could have used some help. I did it by myself, and maybe it would not have taken me 10 years to finish the job had I had some assistance. So
Absolutely true. Yeah.
yeah, feel free. Let's hear from you, Sandy. Tell me a little bit about your background and
Yeah, thank you. So my name's Sandi Pontius. My official title is Tobacco Education Coordinator for St. Joe County, and I'm paid by a grant from the state, Tobacco Prevention and Cessation Commission. St. Joe Health System is my lead agency, so that's technically who I work for, is St. Joe. I also am a former smoker. I smoked for, I don't even want to tell you how long. I mean, probably 30 years. But I've been quit for about 15. Um, so I kind of given my age away maybe, but
I
but
didn't tell you when I quit.
right. But I do like to tell people that I'm a former smoker because I get it. I get how hard it is. I
Yeah.
get why it takes 10 years to quit. You probably had multiple attempts. I had multiple attempts. It's a statistic that it's an average of 7
Mm.
before success that people
And
quitting
how
after
long?
as long as it takes, it can take, maybe it could take 7 years, right? Like if you try once a year to quit, it could take
Okay.
7 years, it could take 10 years, right? I myself knew I needed to quit. I mean, I tried all many, many, many times. But previously, before I had got into public health, I was in hospitality. So I was a waitress, a bartender,
Oh,
a restaurant manager, and
yeah.
everybody smokes. So it was,
Right, right,
and there was no smoke-free air ordinances or laws at that time either.
right, right.
So, it was very, very difficult to quit, and I just was not successful. And even and I worked at a bar when I was pregnant with my kids, and even though I quit, while I was pregnant and said, to myself, well, you haven't smoked for like, 9 months. Why don't you just quit? And I'd say, yeah, I'm just not going to even, I'm good. And then I'd go to work and, everybody'd be smoking. It'd be
Back in
10
the
minutes and I'd
environment.
be like, hey, somebody's got to get me a cigarette. Um,
Right back at it. Yeah, I quit for a
and that's
week.
addiction.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
addiction
It's a
is. It's just,
cycle.
yeah, nicotine is a drug, and it changes your brain chemistry just like any other drug does. And
Yeah. When
plus,
you
we're all,
said it took seven times, I was just wondering how long they quit each time. Because I
oh,
quit for a week all the
yeah,
time. That I could do that all the time.
right.
I don't know how many times I did that. And then I think once I quit for a year. And
I hear
then
that a lot. Yeah, I hear that a lot. Well, I
yeah.
quit, 10 years ago, but then, I had a bunch of stress, and so I picked it back up, or I was partying with friends and somebody was smoking, and, I picked it back up. Uh, Hopefully we'll talk about this, but the program that I am a facilitator for Courage to Quit, it does talk about that, and it gives you, the tips and tricks that you need to overcome those things, and it's really helpful. Now, I did not. use that when I quit. It was really about getting this job. But of course, had wanted to quit for a long time. And so it was
Mhm.
just a really good, incentive to get this job.
So
Uh,
you quit smoking for the job? Yeah,
yep.
girl.
Yeah.
Wow.
Full disclosure, the vice president of community health and well-being here at St. Joe is my oldest and dearest friend. So she is the one who said, you've been wanting to quit. We have this position open. Of course, she did not interview me. I do not report to her.
Uh-huh.
Um, but that's how I found out about it and how I got involved in it. And when I quit, I was really learning about the tobacco industry at the
Mm.
time, and they are the bad guys. They are they're insidious and they're deceptive, and they don't care about people's health. They just want your money. And have some quotes that will just make you mad when you hear them. I mean, and it made it a little easier for me because I just did not want to put my money in their pockets. So, um,
I could see that about you.
yeah.
Uh-uh.
Nope, you're not using my money. No. But, that was, my story did start like, with the career pivot, leaving the hospitality industry. Um,
Mhm.
it was a time for a day job. And of course, my kids were in school then, so it just aligned better with my schedule.
Mhm.
I started out in public health. Well, I started out working at the YMCA, at the front desk, and that's kind of really where I got my first glimpse into public health, and also the realities of poverty, because of scholarships that people came into we would see how little money they were making, and it was really eye-opening, to say the least. But when that role was organized out, kind of a polite way of saying budget cuts, my friend told me about this position at St. Joe. So, but I'd have to quit smoking. Um, but learning about those industry tactics, and especially how they target young people, it just lit a fire. It was the push I needed to finally kick that
Mm.
habit. Um, and another major turning point also came when I was diagnosed with COPD.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, even though I quit smoking, 15 years ago, just those decades of exposure, both secondhand, in the restaurants, and firsthand by, my personal smoking.
Your own hand?
Yeah, one firsthand. It already had done the damage, and um, I developed sarcoidosis. It's a mild COPD. It's not emphysema, but it does, limit me because I cannot run. I cannot, I avoid stairs. I can walk up them, but I have to go slowly. Sometimes I just have to stop, and catch my breath. Um, it's uh, it's frustrating, honestly.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
really frustrating.
Yeah. Wow. And so tell me about your quitting. I'm looking for your questions here. There we go.
Um, so the quitting. Well, I guess I was kind of lucky at the time. Some of the barriers that people have for quitting, one that it's too hard, like we're brainwashed into thinking, oh, we can't quit. It's hard to even imagine your life without a cigarette. And people used to come into my bar and they would say things like, oh, Sandy, you should quit smoking. It's so great a life. It's just such a better life. And I'd be like, whatever. Okay. Um, but once I did quit, I found out they were right. Like this, it is a completely different life, and it's so much better. It, it, you don't have to worry about stepping outside, how you smell, um, having the time, taking a break, getting irritable, needing nicotine, stopping at the store every day, making sure I have a lighter, got to have one for the morning. It's a lot of work. You know,
You're
and a lot of
right.
time, a lot of time. In fact, that's what I noticed the most of when I quit was the time that I saved, of all of those things, plus the little, 10-minute increments of time to smoke, to step outside to
Right.
smoke. Those add up, when you're not doing that anymore. And I really noticed the extra time that I had. Um, I think that was the best result. Also at that time, my brother was had a clinic, and he was doing that HCG diet. Remember that was big, like kind of back in the 2011-ish.
Mhm.
So I was doing that to make sure that I didn't gain any weight. So I did not gain any weight. Some people do, um, but it's better than lung cancer, I figure.
Mhm.
So, you know how I did it? I used the patch, but I could not wear it overnight, as they recommend. They say, wear it overnight so that your first morning,
Oh, yeah,
craving,
yeah.
is covered. But I had these really weird, creepy dreams while I was on the
Oh.
patch, and I've heard other people say that too. And so I would just take it off at night and then just, slap it back on first thing in the morning.
Mhm. And
So I was.
that fixed the dream problem?
Yep, it sure did. I don't know what the nicotine just, well, it messes with your brain. I mean, that's what it does. It's, messes with your neurotransmitters. So anyway, I did that. I also picked my quit day. Um, that would make it easier. I was a Girl Scout leader at the time, my
Mhm.
daughter, and we took a trip to spend the night at the Fort Wayne Zoo. Um, and so I knew I would be with girls for 2 days and I wouldn't be able to smoke around them anyway. So I
Right.
figured that was the best time to quit. And it made it easier. It made it easier to get through the first couple of days. Um,
Mhm.
I had some relapses. I won't say that I didn't, you know. Um, I kind of discovered actually that there are a few people out there that can have a cigarette every once in a while. Not many, but there are some people out
Yeah,
there.
I
Yeah,
was
I
never
found
able
I,
to do that.
I'm one I can. I don't want to, but I can, but like my husband can't. He also
Mhm.
thought, oh, he could have one every once in a while. And then before he knew it, he was buying packs and stepping outside during, the workday. And so he
Creeps
cannot.
right up on you.
Yeah. It's just the addiction is so strong. Technically, here's, like physically what nicotine does is it binds to your dopamine receptors in your brain. And so what happens then is that the dopamine can't reach its receptors, without nicotine being present. So people are irritable when they don't have any nicotine, right? It's because their dopamine's not reaching and um, they just feel icky.
Mhm.
So when the nicotine
Okay.
goes, the dopamine reaches. So you have to kind of retrain your brain um, to quit. Um, you know,
Okay.
it will.
So how do people find you and tell me about your role as a
Yeah. Um,
facilitator.
so as a facilitator for Courage to Quit, it is a challenge getting people uh, into the classes. Um, the doctors will refer people to me often, and I call them. And I actually also have a partner that also facilitates, a
Hmm.
colleague, and she just disclosure again used to be a tobacco treatment specialist back in the day. I used to work for her.
Hmm.
She's back in town and she is just helping us out by doing some cessation also. But it's hard to get people to fill the classes. There's a lot of fear in quitting. 70,
What are people's biggest fears?
I think it is just the lack of knowledge. I think they think it's going to be too hard. I think they feel like they need it for several things, maybe for boredom or,
Hmm.
for killing time or, for nervousness. It's like a mask. The smoke is so it'll make you feel more social, keep you from getting hungry, these kinds of things. Um, but it's all just a trick, really, on the part of the cigarette because cigarettes are not interesting. So they don't really help you with your boredom. Um, you know, they are a time
I don't
killer,
know. I
but
used to like to watch the smoke, not gonna
it's
lie.
a it's a time suck, you know. It's it's not as hard to quit as people think. It can be done, and life is so much, just infinitely better. Um, but that's hard to imagine when you've been, had this addiction for so many years.
Is part of the program helping people imagine what their life would be like?
Yeah, that's part of it. Um, so Courage to Quit is a 6 session program basically. The first 3 sessions we look at what are your triggers, and this is probably going to mirror some other addiction programs. What are your triggers? What are the things that you do that you associate with smoking. It's like, say,
Mhm.
every time I get in my car, I light up a cigarette, or every time I get on the phone, I light up a cigarette, right? Or every time I
Okay.
finish a meal, I light up a cigarette. So those are triggers. Those are things that, make you think about cigarettes. And then we look at, techniques to deal with that. We can avoid that trigger. If it's the store that I see on the way to work, I could drive a different way.
Mm.
Um, I can alter my route, alter my path so that I don't come across those triggers.
Mhm.
Also, we can substitute things like every time I have a trigger, I'm going to throw a piece of gum in or eat a piece of candy or drink a bottle of water, whatever it is. So that is kind of the second trick and tip that I give people is knowing ahead of time. This is how to deal with cravings. You got to know ahead of time what you're going to do to fill those little 10-minute increments of time. It's really all about distracting yourself. It's distracting your
Mhm.
brain. Just how like little kids, they're having a tantrum and then you shake your keys in front of them and they're like, oh, okay, I'm
Yes,
fine.
shiny thing.
They forgot what they were just crying about. It's kind of just like that, right? It's just you have to distract your brain from it. Cravings go away. They go away within 2 minutes. So if you don't feed that craving, it's not that long before it goes away, right? So, but you got to know ahead of time because if you try to think of something, while you're trying to quit, you won't be able to
And like you have
because
to carry your bag of tricks with you.
yeah, we do make quit kits. Yeah, definitely. Also like for me, I like playing games on my phone, so that's what I would do. If I would just distract myself by playing a game. Sometimes like a crossword puzzle or a walk around the block. Anything that you enjoy doing that can distract yourself, or even
The only
something that you
thing,
don't have time for. That can distract
right?
yourself. Because you
I
now
think
will.
one of the things that I loved about smoking was just having a moment, just having a moment. Because I think back then it was more keep your nose to the grindstone. And, it was like push, 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 push. And I needed an excuse to stop because, I'm like overachiever. And so, go, 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 go. And, it's like, wait, I need to go have a cigarette. But what I really needed was a break.
Right.
I needed to just go breathe. Because what do you do when you smoke?
Exactly. So that
I
that
was like,
brings up something
that's so beneficial.
that I always want to that I like to talk about stress. So that's kind
Yeah.
of like what we do go through these things in the first three sessions, stress management. So that is true. When a lot of times, people think that cigarettes or tobacco, relieve stress, but it's a myth. Um, it only relieves the problems that it causes. You know, because you're addicted
That's
to the
beautiful.
nicotine, you're irritable and you're stressed out. Then you have that cigarette. It hasn't lowered your stress. It's just fed your addiction, and so you're going to feel less stress. Your dopamine is reaching its receptors and all that. I
Mhm.
like to illustrate it by, your car broke down on the side of the road at 3 a.m. and you're so stressed out. You could have that cigarette, right? But your car is still broke down on the side of the road. It
Yes.
doesn't solve any of your problems.
Right.
It's just a crutch. Of addiction, that
Right.
costs money. Um,
Yeah.
so
I, yeah.
everybody quits. Oh, go ahead.
I was just wondering, because, if you're in that situation, doing some deep breathing would calm you down.
Thank you. I was losing my train. Yes. So that's one of the things we do in the classes is practice deep breathing. I am hoping to incorporate some like mindfulness, like at the beginning, just a short meditation. That may also help with imagining your life, smoke free. Um, I remember this one lady that was in one of my sessions that she's like, man, I just don't even have time to take a bath, you know, let alone this or that or the other. And I said, well, guess what? When you got all your 10-minute increments back,
10, 20,
you
30.
will have a time to take a bath. So you've got to just learn. It's the brain. It's just all about the brain. It's not even the body. The body doesn't crave tobacco, it's the brain. And so it's really just about retraining the brain. It's also kind of about flipping your mindset. Um, a lot of times people think, oh, well, I gave up cigarettes, or I gave up smoking, or I had to put that away. It's not. It's you're gaining something really by quitting is that you're
Exactly.
gaining your health.
Which gets into
You're
health
gaining your
creation.
from addiction. Yeah, throwing those chains of addictions off, you're free now. Why do
Right.
you want to go back to being a slave or, the
Right.
chains of
So that
addiction.
goes right into health creating. So you're becoming a non-smoker.
Right. Um, so creating health is, it means to break free. And the moment someone quits tobacco, their body starts healing. The carbon monoxide levels drop within hours.
Wow.
Maybe you didn't realize that cigarettes put carbon monoxide into your body. We can measure it, actually. So circulation starts to improve, and then, like really over time, the risk of serious diseases goes down. Tobacco use is the number one cause of preventable death in America, in the world, really. But it's one of the few areas, in public health where you can see both immediate and long-term benefits just from
Mhm.
making that one powerful decision to get free from that addiction. So it's not, just a concept to create health. It's really it's measurable. It's life-changing. Um, but you know what you're losing is coughing, throat clearing, your bad sense of smell, your taste buds, worsened anxiety and depression, because if you have anxiety and depression and you're up and down and up, nicotine, no nicotine, nicotine, no nicotine, it just
Mhm.
makes it worse. It
It's like a
exacerbates it.
constant state of stress response because it is not okay to smoke anymore. So it's not like you fit in, So there's the stress of where am I going to go sneak off and have a cigarette. And some people don't care, but for those who do, it's just another stress added. So you don't fit in, you don't feel good, you're doing this, you're beating yourself up because you're doing this, and then you get a little break and you feel good a minute, and then you get stressed out because you want one again and you don't beat yourself. So it's just like this constant, you're like a pinball getting batted around in there within the addiction and the guilt and the feeling of defeat, I think, would be
Yeah, I
a
agree.
thing
So sometimes
too.
I like to illustrate it as like a big clock, like here you're good, you have nicotine, you just smoked, your nicotine is your dopamine's reaching, you're feeling good, but almost immediately the nicotine starts to leave your body. And so, now you're, not thinking about it, but now, you're starting to get a little bit irritable. Now somebody, they're getting on your nerves, and now I gotta have a cigarette. And so you go have a cigarette and okay, now you feel better. But then
Mhm.
nicotine immediately starts to leave your body. And it just is a big cycle of up and down. And the
What
only
what
way to break it is to
what's
stop.
the time frame on that circle that you're
It's
drawing
about
there?
an hour,
Oh,
honestly, about an hour. Yeah.
wow.
Now, so, you can, again, distracting yourself. Um, you can go longer than that, obviously. People can go longer, but
It's like
as
sitting on the
a
fence all day
cycle, yeah,
long.
that's about
Rather
what it
than
is.
choosing the side of the fence, it's just sitting on it all day long. The uncomfortable posts.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's
Choosing.
what people are, are afraid to give up because they're just so used to it. When you always live in crisis mode, right? If you're always, have a stress response, that's what you live. And it's hard to imagine changing your life.
Are you familiar with Joe Dispenza?
Mm-mm.
You might want to look some of his works up, but he discusses being addicted to emotions.
Yeah.
And so just as you just described, he
Wow.
he goes
How do you,
into
how do you spell
to
that?
great detail, and he
What's his
has
name again?
retreats, and he's known around the world. And he will do retreats and measure brain waves and the stress response, and yeah, it's just really fascinating stuff.
What's his name again?
Joe Dispenza.
I'm gonna check him out.
Yeah.
I like to incorporate other things besides just the Courage to Quit, which is a great program. But I also read and listened to over COVID. So this was, 5 years ago, but I read and listened to. It's called The Easy Way to Quit Smoking. I was intrigued because, like, there's no easy way to quit smoking. But Alan Carr is the author of this book. He's British. It's funny to listen to it. But he It's great, I think. I think it's really, really helpful. So I have chosen several passages from the book that kind of go along with what we're talking about that week. He says things like that's where I got about flipping the mindset from him. He says that he illustrates that feeling of tobacco use as wearing shoes that are too tight to feel the pleasure of taking them off.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so I use that one too. Um, what else are some of his things that, cravings only last 2 minutes. Um, they're not exciting, so they don't cure boredom. Like a lot of this stuff I got from Alan Carr. And so I, the point being, I like to incorporate different things into my classes. Like
Mhm.
I want to start doing this mindfulness meditation stuff
Nice.
as well. And then I would, if we could talk about emotions, um, that would be a great thing to incorporate as well. So,
Yeah, I look
yeah.
at emotions, and we don't have emotions. We are emotion.
Mm,
It's just where you have your thermostat set, your emotional thermostat, and you kind of hang out there. So if they're hanging out in crisis mode, then they're going to be, a little above, a little below, but that's their that's their home, and that's what they're used to. That's familiar. But we can do some things to adjust that and to
yeah,
find a new spot where
makes
where
sense.
yeah, there's a lot of resources, a lot of business resources for that too. But
Mm,
working in crisis management rather than planning ahead type of thing.
right. I
Uh,
have that issue
so what is
myself.
what is one practice or concept do you wish more people understood or tried?
Um, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is
Ah,
what Jill used to really use before Courage to Quit. I wish that more people would explore this. Honestly, I wish I understood it better earlier on. It's not just for therapists' office or self-help books. It's really practical, especially when we're coming to behavior changing, like quitting tobacco. The beauty of it is it breaks it down into just manageable steps, so you don't have to change overnight, like one action a week. So like this week, I'm not going to smoke when I'm on the phone, or this week, I'm not going to smoke in my car. And you just do it step by step so that when you get to the quit day, you've already experienced some of the, smaller things that you may experience, and it doesn't
yeah.
have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be miserable. It can really feel empowering.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm wondering if because my philosophy is it's easier to do something than to stop doing something. So maybe thinking, okay, I normally smoke in my car. So I am going to normally do this now when I get in my car.
right.
I'm gonna normally choose a beautiful smelling essential oil and put it on a cotton ball and stick it in my vent. That's what I'm gonna do when I get in my car now.
Yeah, it's
So
it's just same thing. It's about replacing the behavior and uh, you know, um,
yeah, yeah.
knowing
Do
ahead of
something.
time what you're going to do. Um,
Back to
oh,
cognitive,
behavior therapy.
yeah, cognitive behavior
It's
therapy.
just,
Did
manageable steps to
you
break
see
down that.
that included in the cognitive therapy is a triangle? Are you familiar with that triangle?
Maybe, but
This is one of the most useful resources that I've seen is this triangle. It'd be nice to have a slide, but it is there's thoughts or beliefs, actions or behaviors, and feelings and emotions.
interesting.
And if you change one, this really does need a slide. If you change one, the others will change. However,
Yeah, okay.
you can, it's really easy to fall off because if I would change whatever's easiest to change, but you got to really hang on to that change. You got to have some thoughts and beliefs. If you're going to change a behavior, you need the thoughts and beliefs to support that. And then the feelings will be a natural tag along.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
all three of those will always be together. So it's kind of like PTSD, where if I have been guilty of this, a lot of trauma in my history. So something happens and I launch with the thoughts and feelings because this action happened or a feeling happens and then I launch the actions, and then, but it's launched before you even have a chance to process. So that's kind of, so you can start upsetting the pattern of PTSD type of stuff that you get stuck in a cycle. Let's not call it PTSD because I'm sure some industry owns that term, and I don't. So
Yeah.
you get stuck in a cycle there. Let's call it that. You can change one of those things, and the other two will change to match it.
I think that's great. I love that. I want to learn a little bit more about that as well, because that
That's
is
a
something,
fun tool.
I can incorporate that in as well. I always feel like the most information I can give them, will help with anything. Like I talk about the industry. That's not really in the book either, but I like to talk about the industry because once you know who you're supporting, with your money and everything, maybe that's another,
Wake up call.
incentive, right? And, I say that to young people, not to get all into vapes until you're ready to do that if you want, but, kids are not smoking cigarettes anymore, but they are still getting addicted to nicotine, because of these e-cigarettes or vapes, as they call them, and the industry has jumped on board. Um, so I always ask kids when they tell me that they vape, I say, why? Why do you want to addict yourself to a drug that you're going to just end up paying for the rest of your life? And
In
it
more ways than one.
just to feel normal. Because, once you're addicted, there's no buzz or anything off of cigarettes. You just need it to get back to that normal feeling that you had, before your dopamine wasn't reaching.
You know, I have four sons, and two of them were
God love
addicted
ya.
to heroin. Huh?
Oh, I said, God love ya, four sons.
Thank you. I'll take all that I can get.
Yeah. Shoo.
But one of them said, people would say that marijuana is the gateway drug. And,
Mm-mm.
one of my sons, he goes, no, it isn't. It's cigarettes.
That's what I say too. Nicotine
That's
is the
that's
gateway
the
drug.
gateway.
It
It's
is.
it isn't pot because pot never leads to something else. But
Right.
cigarettes open up a door where you're going to get addicted. With smoking pot, you know, jury's out. Uh, or with alcohol, but with cigarettes, that's such a conscious choice to violate common sense, and and
But
so it's the
the strange,
start.
yeah, the sad thing is though that it's not even, people say, oh, it's a choice. Kinda not really, because the choice to start was most likely made before 90% of smokers start before they turn 18 even, right? So it was probably likely made when your brain wasn't fully developed, when, everyone's immortal at 17, or 13 even is a
Oh
really
yeah, yeah,
common
yeah.
initiation age. Um, so by the time your brain is fully developed, it's too late, you're addicted. Um, and that primes your brain for further addictions, which is why it is the gateway
Hmm.
drug. And I'm glad that other people are noticing that, because it's when I try to spread that, a lot of people are like, oh really, okay, like they never thought of that before.
Yeah, and coming from someone who was addicted to heroin for well over 10 years,
Mm,
you
it's
know.
just so sad.
Yeah. I'm just grateful that they're alive. Everybody's good, and with the way we handled that was to find something that they loved, and learn to love their lives. And that's the approach that we took, is to learn how to love your life. So those two that were addicted now are thriving, loving their lives. They are just, they're in their groove. They are all of who they are, and it's just such a beautiful thing to see.
That is beautiful. Yeah.
Whereas before they were not so much.
Because it's a really difficult, to get out of.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of another thing that is really actually part of my work, is working with, that I've chosen to take on this grant session. I'm grant funded, is working with recovery facilities to encourage them to incorporate smoking cessation in their, addiction recovery, because in the past it's everybody knows this. It's always been, oh, at least let them have their cigarettes, right? Like AA meetings are the smokiest rooms in town, right? So at least let them have their cigarettes. But really, that just defeats kind of the purpose because
Yeah,
it
it's
it,
still an
it
external thing.
continues addiction, which makes relapse more likely, 25% more likely. So
Wow.
we are advocating to them to include it. And when I do talk to some recovery groups, and I always say, if you got to go through this suck of getting over this addiction now, you want to do that again when you have to quit smoking and get that suck, again, why don't you just do them all? Like if you're getting over addictions, just do all of them at the same time. Then you're, less likely to relapse. Your life is infinitely better. Your health is infinitely better. It's the best thing you can do to improve your health is quit smoking.
Yeah, don't set
So
yourself up.
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
a relapse later.
so, it's a challenge because some old school, don't really believe that. And of course, some addicts don't want to quit. They don't want to do that. So, you got to kind of convince them it's the right, it's the right way, which I am trying to do, but
Somebody, somebody I used to work with was talking about why people stay in their miseries, even though they know better. And he said, yeah, that warm diaper feels real good.
you.
Really good point.
Yeah, right. That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of
Gross.
graphic, Southside Chicago Irish guy. Tells it like it is. Yeah. It's so
You
funny.
know, the more I learn about, just people and addiction itself, and health and public health, the more I am amazed and just, by people. Um, I love people, always have. Definitely, obviously, an extrovert.
Yeah. You
And I
think?
love to, yeah, really. And I love to be around a lot of people and I love to speak to people and things like that. So when this job did come along for me, it was like the perfect fit. I love to present. I love to talk. I love to be passionate about things and express my passion. Besides tobacco, I'm really passionate about poverty, which coincides with tobacco. In fact, I think
I was
tobacco
going to
touches
ask.
everything. Yeah. I mean, it touches financial issues. Of course, it touches health, obviously. It can touch, gosh, your weight. It can touch, um, it touches kids, the education, just name something. I went to, I was just filling in for somebody, but I went to the lead affinity group because actually I had learned about what lead does, and I was a little passionate about that too. Um, but I wasn't sure if it really went with tobacco. And so I looked it up, and I can't find it again, but I did find um, something that said that if having lead in your body, it makes you more susceptible to the harms of tobacco.
Makes sense.
Yeah, like it combines, to make it even worse. So, it just really just touches everything, addiction and
Relationships too.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
remember thinking when I was going to quit smoking, I just had this thought, this is probably going to end my marriage. And,
Oh gosh, that's pretty sad, but I'm sorry to hear that. But yeah,
and I can't
and
really
that's part of the
say that
fear.
it did, but, it's something that is non-spoken, the effect, because you are who you are with that with you. And if that's not with you, you are not that person anymore. And my marriage did end. I don't know if it was due to that or not, or if that was a case of me taking strong steps in self-care that was not necessarily welcome at the time.
Yeah, when
It's a
I
very intense stress situation, and by the way, we recovered our relationship. We didn't get back together, but we healed all wounds, and we were able to become a family again. So,
that's good.
um, and I always say it takes two to tango, and so just to really put it out there, I changed, I grew, I developed holistically, I became whole, And then all of a sudden, my family started working again. So whose fault was it? I can't necessarily blame him. If I changed and the whole world changed around me. So maybe I had something to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, to that end, my husband and I had to quit together. And I do hear
Yeah,
from some people that that's their barrier, is that their person, is not willing to quit, and so it's just too much of a trigger, right? It's just too
it's too
hard
hard. Yeah,
to do it when that person is still smoking. I do tell some people sometimes that the only downside of quitting is now you'll smell it. And I think sometimes that's what keeps people smoking sometimes, if their partner does also, because it's stinky. But if you're smoking, you don't notice it so much. And so I
yeah,
really do think that that is, a good way to slip,
yeah,
is by.
yeah. And that is definitely something that people need to be realistic about and really think about because you cannot stand the smell of it, especially on their breath.
Yeah, but I mean,
Gross.
and I can't even walk behind somebody in the grocery store anymore, if they're a smoker, but I have to let them move on
Yeah.
ahead so I don't keep crossing them at every aisle, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's a myth that I hear all the time that people's the cravings never go away. I never had a craving again. When I quit smoking, I never had a craving again.
Mm.
I mean, as far as I chewed the gum, but it wasn't like I ever wanted a cigarette again, ever, never again. So
And
you don't,
that's different for everybody. So
yeah,
I did
it
have
isn't
some,
necessary.
right, right.
It's not a absolute, I guess, because
I
it did.
I'd be behind cars that were smoking, and and the smell would come into my car, and I'd be like, man, I'd be jealous. Like, how come you guys can smoke and I had to quit? But
Yeah,
once I read Alan Carr's book, um, I do not want a cigarette. Will never touch another cigarette because I know the real truth about them. Um, but what was I going to say? Um, Shoot, it'll
about
come back. Yeah,
about never having a craving again.
yes. So having cravings. Yeah, what was I going to say? It's um it's all about your brain. It's brain traps. It's thought traps, and we do talk about those in Courage to Quit, because there are things like the thought trap of, oh, well, I can just have one, but there's no, macho, but there's no such thing as one cigarette. That's what it's just like out, like an alcoholic. You can't even have one drink. It's the same. You cannot even have one cigarette. Don't even fool yourself.
Yeah, you can't go in that pond again.
Yeah, don't even trick yourself because it's an addiction. You can't do it. Um, so there are, but those thought traps come up, and they still come up years later, where and maybe you encountered a trigger like that. That's probably what happened, is they encountered some kind of trigger. Maybe they didn't even know about that trigger,
Exactly.
and that's why their craving comes back. So,
Yeah.
um, if you figure out how to deal with those triggers, and avoid them or what have you. This is an interesting story, I think, about triggering and relapse. I had a class, or a cohort, I guess, that had three guys in it, and one of them was a vapor, and the other two were smokers. One gentleman was an older gentleman, and the other one was probably my age. Um, anyway, so it was week 5, because they had been quit for a week, and doing pretty well. The next week, each of them had had a slip, but for different reasons. So the vapor young guy did not tell his friends that he was quitting, and so when he went out with them and they said, "Hey, do you want a cigarette?" He was like, "Oh, well, I'm quitting vaping. I can have a cigarette." And then he realized that no, he could not. But his mistake, I guess, was not telling his friends. You have to let your people know that you're quitting, so that they do not, tempt you or trigger you or what have you. You have to let people know. You need support with that.
Yeah.
The second gentleman went to get gas, and I guess he hadn't gotten gas in his car the week before, and he went to fill up his car, and his habit was to go inside, pay for his, gas, and buy a pack of cigarettes. Whereas most of us just, just stick our card in there, and then we don't even go inside the place, which is a whole nother issue. But anyway, he bought a pack of cigarettes and pulled one out, and started and he and went, "What the heck am I doing? How did this just happen?" Like I wasn't even
Autopilot.
like conscious. Yeah.
Yep.
And I
Mhm.
said, "So what did you do with the pack of cigarettes?" And he said that he filled the pack with water and threw them away. And I was like, "Phew, okay, that's yay, good for you." So he got it. The third guy um, did not. So the second guy, so his problem was he didn't identify all his triggers. Maybe he didn't know about it, but still, that's,
Yep.
you try to get the most of them that you can. The
Catch
third
you off
guy
guard.
did not dump all his ashtrays, which is something about, the planning to quit. So when he had a big craving, he went through his ashtrays and opened up all the cigarettes and poured, all the unused tobacco and rolled himself a cigarette. And I was like, that's a lot of work. And he said, yeah, and it wasn't even worth it, because
It
it
was
was
a
really
labor of
gross.
love.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's a lot of work. So, so there are these techniques that you need to know. Like you have to make that plan. You have to know, that you need to get rid of all your cigarettes, get rid of your lighters, put your ashtrays away, make sure there's no cigarettes hiding, on a high shelf in your garage or in a pocket of your last winter coat. You know, you have to do these things. Um, it doesn't seem like it's important, but it really is. You've got to follow the procedures, and then you can be successful. I mean, people that make it all the way through all 6 sessions have been successful. Um, some
How
have
many
relapsed. I
sessions?
won't. Six. So
6 sessions.
yeah. So we the first three, then everybody quits, and we all quit together. And that way, we're all on the same track and we support each other and, hold each other accountable, things like that. Sometimes they share ideas. Oh, well, this worked for me. Oh, great, I'll try that. That's what I love about the group
Right.
part of it, is the sharing of ideas. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, I think we tend to think that we smoke for because of the addiction or because it's calming, like one or two reasons. But I think I mean, if you've smoked for 20, 30 years, you have reached for that in so many different situations. Yeah. I mean, it's like a marriage and you're going to go through grieving
right.
after, you're losing a friend, you're losing a solid, dependable go-to, even though it
A lot
wasn't
of people
good for
think that,
you.
yeah.
It's a
Right,
divorce. you know?
right, right. Which is why the mind flip has to happen. You
Yes.
can't think of it as that. You can't think of it as what you're giving up. You have to really think of it as what you're gaining.
What you're
Um,
gaining. Right. Right. And then,
it's
grieve it because there's a grieving process and you have to process those emotions and let it go
yeah,
and
Alan
come to
Carr's
acceptance.
he says that there are two reasons people smoke, and one is of course addiction, physical addiction, and the second is brainwashing, is what he calls it. That we're brainwashed to believe these things. We need the cigarettes for this or that or what have you, or that
Right.
we can't imagine life without them or what have you. And so as you read through the book, basically he's de-brainwashing you so that when you get to the actual steps for quitting, basically it's stop smoking, don't mope about it.
Celebrate it.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it.
Create a new
Um,
identity. I am a
yeah,
non-smoker. What do
yeah,
non-smokers do when they get up in the morning? I'm going to do that.
right.
No.
Right. And the stress thing, like all, we non-smokers have plenty of stress. It's not like there's no stress in my life. You just
Yeah.
find a different way to deal with it, besides put
Yeah.
poison in your body and, toxins and stinky stuff. And
Mhm.
yeah. Also I do talk a little bit about second and third hand smoke. Um, Third hand smoke, I think, is the worst, actually, even worse than secondhand smoke, because what it is it's the particles in smoke. So like when that smoke disappears, you wave it away. It really doesn't disappear. Um,
Right.
it has mass. It's made up of all
As a
these,
non-smoker, I know this.
yeah, teeny, teeny, tiny particles that just fall everywhere. So like if you've cleaned a smoker's window before, that kind of yellowy brown gunk, or if you took a picture off the wall and it's white and yellow all around it, that's
Yeah.
third hand smoke. It's what smells, it's full of poison. Um, if kids are around, they touch it, they'll pick it up on their fingers and then they stick their fingers in their mouths. So, little kids can really be harmed by third hand smoke. And it's just great. It makes everything dirty. It's the worst, I think. It's worse than even the secondhand smoke. So I make sure that they know about those kinds of things too, because, a lot of people just think it's like they're glamorized, like smoking is so glamorous for many people. And it's portrayed that way, right, in the movies and things like that. So it's not really glamorous. It's really poison and stinky and gross and dirty. And, you kind of got to plant that seed as well.
Yeah, some people said if people wore their lungs on the outside, they would look at smoking differently.
I remember that. There was like a commercial like that. And it
Yeah.
was very disturbing. I think I only saw it once because it was pretty disturbing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Or seeing the lung slices
Mm.
and how it eats away at your lungs.
I actually do have um, a set of pig lungs, and they are real pig lungs. But did you make a pig smoke? No, we didn't. So what, they come from like a meat packing plant where we're not eating lungs, so they sell them to a company, and then this company treats them with dyes and things like that. So that one set looks like beautiful, healthy non-smokers' lungs, pink, blowing up. You pump them in, they expand and contract, and the other one is a smoker's lung, and it doesn't expand and contract because there's a tumor right here blocking the air from getting into it, and it's all black from the tar. Um, if you squeeze the good lung, you can kind of feel the alveoli, little pops. If you squeeze the tobacco lung, you don't feel those. It's not as spongy. It's just you can really see those differences. I don't like adults don't want to see it, but kids really like to look at that, and so I hope it sticks in their brain.
One thing that stuck in my brain was somebody saying, try breathing through a straw.
Oh yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, that's that. Well, yeah. When we again, another prevention thing is,
Horrifying.
if you the kids, you make them breathe through a straw, and then you have them do like 10 jumping jacks. Now breathe through the straw, to see how hard or how much harder it is when your lungs have to work overtime. So hopefully, they are getting this message. I, I do remember talking to a group of kids like at the crossings or something like that. So they were like at risk kids. And I said something about um, COPD, about emphysema. And basically, because I had just watched something, this woman died young-ish, from emphysema. Basically, you drown in your own phlegm, is what happens. And I was, when I said that immediately, this young lady's arm went up in the air. Oh, well, how do you quit then? Like, I need to know how to quit. Like, that was something that affected her, like she could visualize that and understand that. So, talking about even though kids, we all know it's bad for you, and kids really need to know more about how they're tricked, how they're targeted by the
Mhm.
industry than necessarily the health issues. But the reality of it sometimes, will really smack them in the face.
Yeah.
So, that's what the pig lungs are about. That's what these
Mhm.
stories are about. Not as effective with adults that, are already smoking. They really don't want to see it. I get
Yeah.
avoided a lot
I don't want to know.
at health fairs. Yes, I get skipped a lot at health fairs, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not going to that table.
Okay. Is there anything else that you can think of that might
Mm.
connect with a smoker who's trying to quit or encourage them maybe?
So, okay, so I want to say this. I'm bringing what I'm here to offer to the Health Exchange. Why I'm doing this podcast is that I'm trying to bring a toolkit of free resources to help folks break free from nicotine addiction. There's no judgment, no gimmicks, not a catch. It's just real change. And so, besides the Courage to Quit sessions that I facilitate, I also really promote the quit line, the Indiana Tobacco Quit line, which is quitnowindiana.com.
Mhm.
Um, it's free, another free program from the state. Everyone that calls and enrolls gets a coach, a personal coach that's going to work with them specifically. They're going to do a lot of the same stuff. They're going to make a plan. They're going to talk about their triggers, things like that. Most people will qualify for free nicotine replacement, like patches or gum. They can get them started with 2 weeks free. The only ones that don't, if their insurance covers it, or I think the VA covers it, but if they're on Medicaid or if they have no insurance, they can get 2 weeks free nicotine replacement. Plus, there it comes with counseling sessions as well. And you can set those up for group or solo with your counselor, that with your coach.
Mhm.
Um, and there's 24/7 access to calling in. So if you are stuck on the road on the side of the road at 3 a.m., you can call the quit line, right? You
Yeah.
can't call me,
Call the quit line,
but you
then
can
call
call.
911.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah. Um, yeah,
Maybe not.
exactly. Call 911 and then call the quit line to
There
talk
we
you
go.
through the waiting. Yeah, there we go. That makes sense. So, I really do strongly suggest, like I can't make them do it, but I strongly suggest those that come into the Courage to Quit also enroll into the quit line, because that's where they're going to get their nicotine replacement. But really, the more resources you use all at the same time, the better off the chances of success. You just maximize your success when you do that.
Right,
So I always
right,
really have to promote the quit line. Um,
right. Well,
it's
yeah,
part of
all
my
the
job even.
resources that, I think developing a big bag of tricks because, those those triggers are going to come at you behind corners and just,
And
after
sometimes
10
you don't
years of
even know,
quitting, that's a
right?
lot of experience.
Sometimes you don't even know, like just, you
Right. You
didn't
had no
think that
idea.
this bothered you, but you see three people standing in front of a door, smoking together, taking a break, and you're like, man,
The
I
camaraderie.
remember when I used to do, right. It's a social thing,
Yeah, I did
you
once.
know?
This was many years after I quit smoking. I didn't want to have a cigarette, but we were at a funeral. And I said, all right, who needs to go smoke? Because I need to go with you. So I just went out and stood with them because that's what I needed. I knew I didn't want to have a cigarette, but I'm like, I got to figure out how to make this work. I was like, all right, let's go. And
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 it is
so
something,
it's like, who needs a cigarette that still smokes? Because I need to go.
yeah,
And it was beautiful.
it's just like you were saying before that, it was a break. It was a way to get away. And I've had, other people tell me that, oh man, I need those 10 minutes to get away from my kids, and they know not to come talk to me because, I'm smoking and it's not good for them, so they just want to stay away and stuff. And
Yeah.
I just
No,
tell
they want
her,
to smoke so they can spend time with them now. That's
right,
the
yeah.
seed that gets planted. It's like,
Ooh,
okay, when I'm big, I can smoke and then I can go with mom.
yeah. Yeah.
You're training them.
It does follow in family lines. Children of smokers are either smokers or really against it. It's like there's no like, I don't care. It's like
Yeah.
it's one or the other. It's just interesting
Mhm.
about that. I also do want to mention about smoke-free workplaces because that's another one of my big things that I work on is smoke-free air ordinances. So we were successful at getting South Bend about 6 or 7 years ago to have a strong law, and in fact, it's the strongest law in the state. But the county is not covered, and you would think that it would not be difficult, like it's common sense to make workplaces smoke free. But people forget like bars are workplaces, membership clubs are workplaces. So, even, having somebody smoke in your workplace puts you in danger. And why is their health less valuable than an office worker's health or a nurse's health or what have you?
Mhm.
So, we have been working on getting the county council to, pass something. But like I said, it is more of a challenge than you would think.
Yeah.
So
Well, I can see, employees are hard to come by, especially working employees. And I think I just would, I get this idea. It's like a smoker culture. It's like they work hard, they go take a break. They work hard, they go take a break, and the employer doesn't want to lose that guy or girl,
right.
because they and I can see how that could be a problem, how they would resist fear of change,
Well,
although that change might bring about it might encourage that employee to become a longer employee because they don't
right,
have COPD and they don't get this,
right,
you know.
right. But here's the thing about that is we are not forcing you don't have to quit. I mean, we'd
Right.
love for you to quit and we will help you quit if you want to, but you don't have we're just saying take it outside. Just take it
Oh
outside
yeah.
so that it's
Yeah.
not secondhand smoke,
I was thinking about outside. I mean,
Yeah.
people going outside to smoke. And,
Right.
so when you said smoke-free workplace, I didn't think anywhere on the property was okay to smoke.
Right. No, well, it has to be at least in South Bend 15 feet away from the door. In the rest of
Right.
the state,
Yeah.
it's
But
eight
that you
feet.
can still,
But yeah, it's just taking it outside. I remember the lady who, I don't remember her name, but the lady who owned the linebacker after we were unsuccessful at getting the South Bend to, they tabled it again. She said she was waiting for him to do it, and she wasn't going to wait anymore because she was tired of getting sick herself. She wasn't a smoker, and she, was getting bronchitis every year and blah, blah, blah. But she said this, and I think it's very powerful. She said, if people will step outside to make a phone call, they will step outside to smoke when you tell them that that they have to. So it's not even it's not even that big a deal, right?
yeah, I mean, they were really afraid. I remember talking to a bar owner during that time, and he was just so afraid that it was going to destroy his business, really.
But
And
it
I don't see
didn't.
any slowdown.
Mm-mm, it didn't.
Parking lots are still full.
Because people don't, they will go outside. They don't mind. And really, if you think about it, the vast majority of people do not smoke. Even back when the rate was 20%, that's 80%, that don't smoke. But now in Indiana, the rate is about 16%, so that is the vast majority of people don't smoke. So actually, you're opening yourself up to more business,
Yeah,
when you
because
go
those
smoke free.
80%, they don't want to go in a stinky place.
Right. So, oh, you're smoke free now. Oh, I can come in and, and eat your food and enjoy your bar without, risking my health or what have you.
I did not know
Um,
that stat. That's interesting.
yeah. And I think some of the places in South Bend found, that to be true. And, so a couple of them went early, smoke free, and said that, their food business just blew up because more people were coming in for that
Hey,
instead of,
that's my husband was he was a workers' comp judge and court administrator in juvenile court. And
Mhm.
he's like, nothing's more effective than hitting them in the pocketbook. So if you can show that they will have more business, and that's a strong incentive because that's
Yeah,
their big fear. They're going to lose all their customers, but no, instead they gained a bunch more.
right.
Those would be fun stats to see too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to let people know that the real truth. That's my mission is to, quell any misinformation or
Mhm.
lies. I'll finish with this. I told you before the tobacco industry, we found master settlement, that's a whole nother podcast as well, but we got a hold of all their memos and things, and their quotes. And one, my favorite quote is somebody asked a tobacco executive if he was a smoker, and he said, "Oh, no, we don't smoke that shit." He said, "We reserve that for the young, the poor, the black, and the stupid." So that's who they think their customers are. That's how they feel about their customers. And so that's who you want to give your money to?
Nope.
Mm-mm. Nope.
Nice. So how do people get a hold of you?
So they can get a hold of me. The best way is probably through email, which my email is my last name and then the letter A. So it's Pontiusa at SJRMC, like St. Joseph Regional Medical Center, sjrmc.com. Or they can call. My phone number is 574-335-4699. They may end up in a class with me. They may end up in a class with Jill, but either way, we both are highly trained. She's even, she used to be a tobacco treatment. So she's even more trained. Like she knows even more about like the physical
Mhm.
effects than I do. So because we were successful in getting the $2 tax raise, which we've been trying, only took us 17 years, um, we are expecting more people to want to quit. But so far, we're not quite finding it yet. It's once it really starts hitting them in the pocketbook, we're hoping that they'll come along. But finding people to enroll in these classes is the challenge right now. So I hope this reaches enough people that they, think, well, maybe she's right. Maybe it's not as hard, as I think it's going to be. And
No,
please get a hold of
it's like
us.
it's perspective is huge, and just you get yourself into a rut
Hmm.
and you don't see anything else but what is in your rut that you keep digging deeper and deeper. You just you can't see around it. But somebody put some steps down there and you climb up and you look around. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, there is another world. And it's exciting to recreate yourself. We are natural creators, human beings are, and we love to learn, we love to grow, we love to expand. Peter Senge wrote a book, The Fifth Discipline, and he said that the desire to learn is stronger than the sex drive. It starts earlier and lasts longer. So
Wow.
that's
I've heard of
powerful.
him. Yeah.
And I was like, that's so true. So, learning how to become a non-smoker it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun and the freedom and the cash you have all the time. So some people said, I have cash all the time now.
When I see people riding bikes, and smoking, I always think you could buy a car if you could.
You probably could. Yeah. So it's like get excited about the possibilities, and let yourself dabble in those possibilities, and those new possibilities, I promise you, will become much more addictive than those cigarettes, and
Mhm.
benefits instead of side effects.
Right. Yeah. I also want to point out, sorry that I should have said this before, but you can get my information on sjmed.com. So
sjmed.com.
yeah, at the St. Joe
Okay,
website, just look up tobacco cessation and you will get to either my or Jill's number.
perfect.